All right. Welcome to the Academy of Advanced Thought. And today I am again joined by Harry Thomas. And so Harry reached out about 3 days ago, 4 days ago, whenever it was, or last week, saying, "Hey, let's have a chat." And I said immediately, "Let's do that as an Academy talk." We haven't communicated since then. I have no idea what the conversation is going to follow down the path of, other than Harry's just said to me a lot has changed since we've last spoken, which is a great launch pad into whatever rabbit hole we end up in. So, Harry, what, what I can't even think of the right first question. What's been going on, mate? What's happening?
Um, okay, good to see you again, first of all, mate. It has been a little while. um, so much, and people will find this hard to accept. There's so much good things happening for the first time ever, and you can see it from every aspect. And there's a phrase called the darkness to the light, dark to light. We're about to go through all of the darkness now that's been lurking around us, but we've never been aware of it before. So it feels like the world's going into this really destructive place. However, if you actually zoom out, it's going into the most amazing place, and evil is going to be wiped out, or it is being wiped out from all over. And I'm in the midst of Arizona at the moment, where the biggest explosive court case has come out the other day, and it's rippling already. And it all links back to the cartels, to human trafficking, to paedophilia, the worst of the worst. And it's so dark that most of us, we don't even know it exists. We're good people. However, when we do hear about it, we go into that fear state. It's like, oh, that's too dark. We don't want to go into that. Over the last 6 years, there's been military involvement all around the world. And I can show you just substantial amount of stuff of how much is being done. And the reason why I'm saying that is that we're being shown war at the moment, and war's got to be the worst thing. That's fear all over. However, if you look, you're paying attention to who's showing us war, first of all. If you just listen to what I would say, I'm going to share you stuff, and all I'd say, just look, military control. We've been in control for a long time, and this is like a spiritual war that goes back before we'd known. So we've all been born into a war. And my ask is if you pay attention to feelings above any meaning, any thought, pay attention to feelings, and you'll see who is delivering a message in fear, who's getting angry, who's getting triggered, who's lying, who's agitated, and who's just sharing it with love. And I'd say pay attention, because that's all I've been about. And there's not just me, there's millions of us now. And we're about to be exposed human trafficking and war. However, please have at the back of your mind, because we all have to go through it, we've already won. And it's almost like this is once in a lifetime, the Great Awakening. However, what's about to be presented to us, none of us can imagine it, because it's all been hidden from us. And just to give you one thought provoking, if you remove censorship from the internet, you have access to all things. We're almost at that stage now. We're hearing quantum in every department in society. Quantum is truth and transparency. It's open to everyone. So we're about coming to a time where everything's going to be out in the open, which allows us to really understand who we are, why we're here, what we're capable of, and what we can create together going forward. And honestly, mate, I'm living with a woman who's just exposed this video, and all of America, it's up 65,000 views in a day. And the phones are ringing now, because what it's done, it showed you how corrupt it is in Arizona. And the judge said, we wouldn't even be able to take this to the courts. It's too big. Like, America would shut down instantly. And it's not about any parties, any like labels. It's about evil, and that's what we've been fighting this whole time. So that's what's been going on, and that's quite a lot to take in. However, I can help bring it back now to a spiritual aspect and show people, if we just stand on our truth first of all, if we pay attention to our feelings and what feels right, then all of this noise that I just said to you, at least you can make discernment, at least you can choose what to accept, but at least you know that how you feel. A lot of us are going into information where we don't really know, we don't have a foundation. So we just get a lot of noise, but within that there's fear, there's arguments, and in the end it's a waste of energy. So we choose to switch off. All I'm saying now that it's all there for us to go and see. My ask is be brave, because if you do, you'll see the world we're headed into. Honestly, it's magical.
Excellent. Well, wow. That was a hell of an answer. So firstly, obviously, I'm going to need the video link because I need to attach it to this video. So that's great. Secondly, for those who would kind of kick the tires on that and say, well, so this kind of a gradual or rapid awareness of what the reality of things are, is there, what kind of mode is that going to be revealed in? Is this eventually more information comes out about the way things are really working and whatever, or is there a moment in time, like a day, for instance, where one day we go from living in a kind of perhaps a sheltered situation where we're fed the information we're meant to be fed so that we don't realize the situation's going on, and then there's another day, like literally 24 hours later, there's this sudden kind of change? Or are you talking about something that gradually happens over time?
It's kind of both of those things at the same time. There has to be a moment where they call it the precipice for us to snap out of it. And I think if you bring things down to a choice, you got love or fear, you got God or fear. So it's almost like you have to go to that point of not having to know what you can, and that does come to a choice. So I think we have been shown about 10 times recently the war, Donald Trump says, I can end this war within 24 hours. If you now type in war 24 hours and peace all over the internet, you're seeing that it's almost like we're being taken down this for a reason. However, the good guys are full in control. And this goes back from the Reagan days as well. And it's hard because that's a lot of information for people to take. Like my whole focus on things is to start with information that I can back up on. So I would never share anything and say, I know what's going on unless I know. And so everyone listening, everything that I'm sharing now, I can back all of this up. And I'm not just doing this for research now, I'm actually working with top people. And it's been amazing to see, because you all of a sudden, all of us on here, we all have meaning and we all are meant to be here. However, we've all been born into, all of us have been born into a lie. So a lot of my work, I work with the language that we use and the legal system and legalese and then the birth certificate and social services. I've kind of seen like the dark elements to society. However, that's been created for a reason, to keep us divided and also to keep us as slaves, really. So we're about to go to a point where a lot of the legal system's going to get questioned and come down, because they're the ones that have been covering up this lie with the mainstream media.
So I started my 2013 TED Talk by saying the sentence, throughout history, the best way of controlling populations is by limiting the amount of information they have access to. And so it's probably the most popular keynote that I've ever given. It changed my career, actually. And I started it innocently by just my observation of finding out behind the scenes the way things were structured versus what was told in the public. And as I gradually understood where the skeletons were hidden, or rather that you had the truth as we were meant to have understood it, and then you had the actual truth that was the way things were actually happening. And the divide was so large that I realized that this was a weaponized structure. And in fact, what happened is that censorship was weaponized to such an extent that it was intentionally prohibitive for these various reasons. And so it was only when I came off stage that people then gave me the feedback that this was well, not only how they saw it, but also that this was a massive that's a pandemic, right? So from the over the last 8 years, 9 years since that talk, I've often thought to myself, are the structures in place that censor and prohibit, structured in a way that even if the reality of some things did come out, they would somehow squash that or mutate it, or is it overcomable?
Yeah, and this is for everyone then to get back on Netflix. This dates back to the 80s when we took down the mafia and the mob. And this was under Reagan's days. And what you have to watch on Fear City, it shows you how we took down the mafia and the mob. The FBI is so intelligent, but you couldn't just, what happened was they were just arresting people. They would follow them for a year, arrest them all. And then a day later, there's another murder. Like, they could never solve it because they could never get to the big bosses. Then they introduced this act called the RICO Act, and it managed to, as long as you could prove that there was all the structure was all linked together, as they called them the organizations, you could take them all down in one go. So what happened was that they managed to, and this is how clever the FBI was, criminals always get the latest gadgets because they're always ahead of the time, so they're always outsmarting them. And they showed you in the 30s they put a combustion engine on the cars, and then the bank robberies went up 200%. Like, they're always ahead of it. And what they showed here, that they had the latest cable machine. So the FBI found out a way how they could interfere with the cable reception. Then they phoned the cable machine guy to say, you need to come round. The FBI intercepted that and then went in as the cable guy and put the bug in the cable machine, which effectively brought down the whole mob. So that was 83. The internet was created 1987. Think about it. The military made the internet the World Wide Web. So now you have the whole playing field. So everything now over the last 50 to 60 years that's ever been press enter has now been caught by the military. So we caught them all. So the web, they're the flies. And at the same time, this is how you trick criminals. There was John McAfee. He created the antivirus, just happened to know how to make an antivirus. So you go to the criminals, don't worry, no one can hack you. Here's an antivirus. We did the same with blockchain. Bitcoin was created to capture human trafficking, because when it first came about, the first 4 years was blockchain and dark web, a playground for criminals. Just, oh, you go on the dark web, you've got your own currency as well. But now we've caught them all. And so the FBI have made the playing field, rather than having to go in and bug them all. We've now got spying equipment. So God creates stuff like this. You can't be evil and create. You have to be in love to have the thought to be able to do this. So we create, and then you give it to the evil and let them do whatever they want. We're spying on them too. So think about the Amazon Echo now. Oh, they're spying on us. Yeah, they thought they was, but behind that, if the FBI now have evidence that you're linked to part of the organization, rather than breaking in your house, which they did to take down the mafia to spy, they just switch a button on. So and I realized that the way that I understood that, and I knew, it sounds so simple now, but because we've lived in fear our whole life, and it has felt like the people at the top are so evil, we never had the imagination to even think that. However, what I've come to terms with the last few years is there's so many more good people in this world. This is the biggest sting operation. So there's a lot of evil within that, but it's not a lot of people. Just they got the amplifier, they've got the money, they've got the jobs for people.
Yeah,
but we've been
it's interesting.
them.
Yeah, but that's a good. It's an interesting take because I'm glad that it goes both ways. That there is a overwhelming goodness that can address the dark, and I mean, dogma or any form of deity or any form of religion aside, I've often believed that ultimately people are good. If given the opportunity to realize the power of good and the power of love, I believe that people are ultimately good, and I believe there are a small volume of people that even when given a choice or a chance, prefer the other side of the fence. And I'm a fan of the statement that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And so tell me how you became how did you arrive in Arizona? How did you meet this person? So what was, because the last time I saw you, you were on YouTube in front of like 10, 20,000 followers, where you've got into an airport, refusing to be vaccinated, somehow realizing that you had the law on your side, and then giving guidance to the rest of the world and saying, you know, you're a lot more powerful than you think. So how did you get from there to Arizona?
Okay, so I that video went viral, and I intended to come back to see my mum and dad from Brazil, a lovely out middle of nowhere country where I was, back to England. My mum and dad had moved down south, so I come back for 3 weeks. I stayed there a year, so I went around the country teaching common law and sharing my story and allowing people to know their rights, but from the most simplistic form. Like it's not hard. It is common sense for common people. Like that is common law. So I went around, and then I started. I think I reached out to you actually, Jonathan, because Jonathan's always inspired me. When the first time I saw him speak, it stayed with me. I still remember it now. 3D printers, the connect of all things. I remember. So I've always asked Jonathan for advice, and he gives me ruthless, I call them soul slaps. He'll say, no, that's not good. That's not. And he left me really good advice for when you're, I want to be on stage. And he said, always start with a powerful question. And I think I reached out to you. How about this for a question? When you're on your deathbed, what words of wisdom will you leave to the rest of the world? So since then,
Yeah.
mate, my whole life has changed because my answer to that question has been simplify life down to a choice. And in every given moment, there is one truth, which is your soul, and anything that's not your truth is ego. So what I've managed to do is go right to the soul first of all, your feelings. So if you closed your eyes, what is love? What's the difference between love and happiness as a feeling? Just the label that you give it. It's just one feeling. Anything with a resistance at all, you could call that fear, you could call that frustrated, you could call that angry. It's just a disease. So life is one of the others. So then I've worked it out, right? How do I do that for the words that I speak? So in the English language, there's a duality. So my philosophy now, if I only speak positive words, I can only be a positive person. And what's brilliant like this, I'm so true to my word now, is that I get into debates because I share my truth and I'll stand on it. And truth hurts, and truth gets challenged. I'm now aware of their reactions. So I'm now observing their ego reactions. And what happens is the more you stand on the truth and you can back it up, the more that the outcomes are repeated. And you see that. So then I'm starting to think, right, what's a truth from a feeling? I'm not going to speak to someone in their ego now if they're arguing with me from a fearful, angry place. So what I do is say, you're in fear. And then it leads them down into, no, I'm not. I went, that's fear. No. Well, the opposite of fear is love. Are you coming from a place of love right now? And it stopped. And what that's allowed me to do is I don't get into arguments. I don't put myself in environments now where people are being negative. I can now set placement and say, any emotions, I'm out. As soon as they get emotional a bit, you're getting emotional now. And it kind of, so that's all come from that. That was a meditation. And then what happened was I got on TikTok. Never
Okay.
been on TikTok. And I meditated, and it just kept saying TikTok, TikTok. And I'd just done a talk about time and how time's an illusion. And we wear a watch on our wrist, but at the soul level, you're just getting a tick, 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 tick. A tick is a blood-sucking parasite. So then you start seeing, whoa, all of this, we've been governed by time. So I got on TikTok, my videos went up to 20 million views in 3 weeks, 55,000 followers, and I got blocked straight away. And then every time I put a new account up, 27,000, these were in days it's happened. I'm not allowed on TikTok now. And the way that I share truth is I'll share the video, I'll share an executive order, but then I'll give you my take on it, knowing that we're in control. So people are arguing with me, but I'm like, look what you're doing. You're arguing with me, but I'm saying if you just look here, we're in full control. And So that's happened. So in the end, I couldn't get my voice heard. I found that a lot of people were a bit threatened to put me on their shows, or they'd get me on the show and then they don't release the episode. So my voice is just being completely squashed. So my friend happened to be the coach of the USA soccer team. He lives in Chicago, and I said, I'm going to come out for the midterms. Can I stay with you first of all? So I went out there, looked after his dogs, and then I meditated and I said, where am I going to go? And within 15 seconds, Maricopa County. So that's in Arizona. I've been here since November now. And this is where it's all happening right at the moment. I'll share the link for the what was brought up, and it's just. And so for anyone that's, if you're unsure about everything, the one thing that will unite us all is the law. But look at the law as this: land, air, and water. When we realize how they've completely been dumping all across our land, when they've been poisoning our water, the food, and also how that impacts all our health, we're straight away united. If you go and watch Fear City from the 80s, go and look how the mafia in New York infiltrated everywhere to the point of waste disposal. And then if you just go on Google now and type in waste management mafia and go and have a look how this has been going on around all over the world. So we're at that point now where these court cases are bringing it all out in the open, and they're showing everyone's been taken. Yeah, so I'm in the most officially now the most corrupt state in America, and it's all just happening right now.
Wow. And how does that make you feel? Is that a scary or exciting feeling? What's your emotion linked to that?
Yeah, so I've come to a place where these people, the people they voted in, are not the people they voted in. Like they've had cheating here for years. It was almost just accepted. But what's happened is since 2020, all the people are now like actually getting involved within the positions. And within the last week or so, all these positions have now been filled. And if you went round and had to ask, none of them are in politics. It's just they're so fed up that they take and think. And this is what it made me understand. We pay no attention to politics. However, if we did pay attention to the people setting the rules and putting all these things in, we would pay a lot more attention, because a lot of it doesn't serve us. So what's happened is you've got pissed off, angry people that have somehow come together, and through love and through fight, now they're in a position or they're in the right positions, knowing what to look out for, knowing how things should be done, and also knowing who's corrupt. So now this court case is going to happen. We now have people in place to do the job without. Imagine if a panic happened. Oh shit, we need to get people in place. How are we going to do the interviews? It would be a mess. This is almost being done deliberately, because now we've got people, they're real passionate about their country and freedom. And now the corruption's come out. It's the people that they all know and been saying they're corrupt. And now it's all out. And this has literally happened on Thursday. So we're very close to lots of big things changing. And again, just keep coming back to that one. You're going to be shown war all over. And the one person that everyone hates throughout this is continuing to say, I will stop this in 24 hours. And if people just had a look, and again, let go of your attachment to the word Donald Trump, go and look at, in 2020, the peace deals that he created between Israel, Sudan, Israel, Morocco, Israel, UAE, Israel, Bahrain, South Korea, North Korea in the peninsula, Serbia and Kosovo, Hong Kong normalization, Venezuela normalization. That was all in 2020. Go and have a look at them, because what that means, it's not just a peace deal and a ticket signed. It's the military in those places now anyway. So when you heard about Biden leaving these big tanks, 86 million billions worth of, just know that that's our tanks, and we're out there for a reason. That was a distraction to put people in place, and it again is a counter to a counter. And this goes back to Sun Tzu, the art of war. And you'll see, to defeat your enemy, you must become your enemy. And you must allow your enemy to think that they become strong, and then they get complacent. And that's when you strike. And we're at that stage now. And again, all of this is quite a lot in one thing. I've done connecting the dots series of this now as well. And I just put it in a way where this is what I see. And I say, what do you think about that? What do you think? And what happens is everything that's happened in your life now makes sense and has meaning, and it was meant to happen. so we can all get involved with this journey, because it's only going to get better and better.
Well, that's good, and that's good news for all of us, I think. And so, tell me what the world looks like after the the awareness and the awakening takes place, either or in both fast and slow form. What does the world look like when we can see behind the veil? We can see the wizard behind the curtain is this old man with the levers. What's the opportunity for humankind after we can see through that?
I'm going to throw it back to you on that one. So advanced thought times a million, because Jonathan, you'll be able to, like, your advanced thought is also limited by the technology. Your advanced thought is limited by people with passion to help you. However, you're going to then have the world at your disposal, and you're going to go, this could change the world, and this is what we need. You're then going to get people that just want to be there, like knowing that we're going to be able to create things without limitation in anything, but you're going to have people there for a reason. So I'd throw it back to you. What do you think it would be like without the limitations?
Well, I feel that my career, I mean, I'm now over 50, and what I'm going to do for the whilst the days that I have are the days that I have this time around the sun, my feeling is that I feel almost duty bound to enable human potential, and so I'm on a course towards human potential myself, and so I'm encouraged by things that will enable more people to realize their human potential. And part of finding human potential is to identify the enemy of human potential. And there's a couple of enemies of human potential that I would combat naturally, and I think I am doing, and I have always combated them. I just didn't realize I was combating the enemies of human potential. And so one of the enemies of human potential is structures that that limit and silence and squash and censor. So those are structures that limit human potential. And another thing that limits human potential is the complete meaninglessness of the mundane and the tasks that we have been educated to feel as if that's what life is meant to include. And I'm almost certain that if we were able to, rather than work with technology, which we do, if technology could work for us, which flips the thing around the other way, I believe that we would actually get the most valuable commodity back, which is time. And I think that one of the biggest restrictions, along with censorship of human potential, is the drain of time and the drain of energy in general. And so that's where I'm shifting towards. And my next company, which is called Self, is in the business of enabling people to get time. and in the business of getting time, the enablement of potential and fulfillment is within that. And so I hope that what happens next is that people can become aware that what they could do is possible. And that involves understanding what their potential is, but also understanding that the restrictions of their potential are almost exclusively myths. And even things like, unfortunately, I mean, it's a slightly rabbit hole-esque here, but one of the things that I feel has been abused as a term is democracy. I think that we have been hoodwinked into thinking that a vote in an election is the same as having a say in a decision. I think that we have been educated to believe that the quote unquote powers that be have our best interests at heart. And I feel that what these things do is they are stopping the collaboration and cooperation of people in freedom. and they are stopping those things, because the most dangerous thing that can happen is that people individually and collectively realize the power that they actually have and then act on that. And that's the worst possible outcome for any form of structure. Could you imagine what happens if a billion... This, by the way, is how the Berlin Wall fell. Just a quick history lesson. That started with some students, two students who were campaigning about the Berlin Wall. They were university students, and those two students brought 15 of their mates, and those 15 of their mates put out a little word to 150 other people. And that 150 other people became 2,000 people. And about 5 days later, that became 10,000 people, and it outweighed the volume of police. And the GDR, the extraordinary pressure on the political situation at that time, where it became a tipping point of the amount of people who believed that their fundamental human rights to cross to another part of the same city was being abused. It became untenable, literally untenable, for the wall to stay up. And that is an example of what happens when people are enabled to be cooperatively and collaboratively free. Every single wall can be broken down then. So that's my longer answer to the question.
Yeah, I love that. And the reason why that we don't unite too, because we could do that now. If people just let go of all the things that we argue about and all the things that we think we've been right and we've been wrong about, if we just let all that go and just pay attention to what's going on at the moment, instantly you would know, actually, what am I doing? That's what I want to be doing. You'd know that straight away. And we're at that stage soon. So that the last part of this is people holding on to that part, because we've all been lied to. I feel like that we're being shown the bit that's going to unite us all, which is our land. And I'd encourage people, go and watch that. But the potential is gigantic, because, for example, you could type in like bioresonance, and bioresonance is very interesting. It's like a vibrational psychic reading. But those vibrations within your body, a quantum will turn that into an affirmation or a word. Or so we vibrate, we're light beings. It puts a word to it. We have the technology to do that, just on a little magnifying. We have the technology, obviously, to do that on a mass scale too. We just don't have the people to understand that. And people are so disconnected from themselves that we struggle, to make our own decisions, because we worry about being able to stand on our feelings, because we're met in such a noisy world and very opinionated world. However, we're all arguing other people's points and not actually paying attention to the bigger picture. So my encouragement is the excitement of what the world's going to look like if we just let go of things now, knowing that wherever you are in your life, if you're still here now, you get better every day. You learn every day, you become a student of life every day, but you get to enjoy the process, because there's all of us starting again every day. The thing is time on the negative side, we hold on to it. It's gone. You got to let it go. So if we can let go of that, then all of a sudden we can start creating and really having more time for you to create, to see what you're actually capable of. I loved your course, so I went on Jonathan's course as well, the Advanced Thought, and I've just gone on. I'm called a soul coach, and that label come from working with people that have been told they're dying. And again, another thing that I struggled with was labels. I kept phoning up with Jonathan. What do I call myself? I'm not a life coach. I don't feel like it's life coaching. But all I got though was when people had been told they're dying, their ego runs away. Like all I got was their truths. And how simple things are. And they'd say, I don't know why they didn't just do this earlier. They'd make decisions that they want to make now. They're saying no instead of like going to places where they protect their energy. So all I got was their truth, which is their soul. So I'm a soul coach. So when you ask people what the most meaningful things in life, you'll see it's one word answers. It is that simple. It comes back to your feelings. So my whole philosophy now is if we become aware of the one word things, the first thought, the word that we choose to speak, what we choose to, the environment we choose to put ourselves in, to pay attention to our intuition. If you took more awareness to that then you wouldn't be wasting time doing things that don't serve you. Then you can use your mind to really create things that do serve you, but it's also going to help a lot of other people too.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, the last chapter of The Rise of Advanced Thought, which is my most recent book, available free on Spotify and on other channels. The last chapter is my last ever TED talk, and that I will ever give. And interestingly enough, I did that TED talk during COVID, and they lost the video. And so the only record of that TED talk is in the back of The Rise of Advanced Thought. And what you've just said is pretty much my version. It's my wording of that point. And I tagged it onto the back of The Rise of Advanced Thought the day that they told me that they deleted the video, or the video had been corrupted. And actually, it's my favorite. It's my favorite of my 5 TED talks. That's the one that I'm most proud of. And the fact that the video is corrupted was just like, that's the lesson. That's the lesson here, isn't it? That's the point. And it's ironic that the video, that the talk is about the lack of permanence and the attachment that we have to things, and so and our deathbed regrets, right? So the whole thing is about this point, and then the video gets corrupted, and I was like, perfect. Fucking perfect. That's exactly the right outcome, right? And so yeah, I mean, I love this. This is such a brilliant chat to have. I'm in closing, I was wondering what you're a font of knowledge and information, and so what I'd really like is for you to give some resources or mention some places people can look and poke around in. You've mentioned there's a video link you're going to send. There's the Fear City thing. There's how can people keep in touch with you and what you're reading and your research? What groups? I mean, aware that there's such a cancel culture about almost anything now. I can imagine there's many channels you're not even allowed to be on. But where can people find you and work with you?
Yeah, sure. So harrythesoulcoach.com, and you'll see a lot of the stuff I spoke about today. You have to go beyond labels. My hardest thing is that I don't get any clients now. I don't get no referral. I have, compared to what I used to. And what happens is people, they go beyond me. They look at what I'm saying, and what I'm saying triggers people. And what I'm saying, they won't even refer someone else, because then they have to argue with this person. I talk about Donald Trump a lot. I talk about the military quite a lot. However, I talk about love quite a lot. I'm more in tune with myself now than I ever have, and I love what I do. So people have to let go of that bit. So the best place to see my work is on Rumble, because I am banned from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, and on Rumble. And all I'd ask people is that actually don't watch my one first. Go and watch the best one to watch to see what's really gone on, especially with the last few years. The Great Awakening, the Bonfire guy on YouTube. Because I always ask people, I don't get into arguments. I'm like, I know when you haven't watched that. The Great Awakening and Bonfire, I know you haven't watched it, because if you had watched it, then I'd ask you the next question: when did we lose control? And you won't be able to answer that question. And so again, you can argue all the time. Start with there, and then on Rumble, it's a series called Devolved.
Okay.
Devolved shows you the military. It's a 5-part one, and then if you tie that in with Fear City on Netflix, and an interesting one for what you were talking about, Jonathan, if you go back, it's called Sons of Liberty, and what that shows you is how the powers that be used to come over to America, and they used to tax people based on a king that these people had never seen before, and this is when the independence was created. That's really good one, just to kind of show you that this has been going on for a long time. And that's like you guys living in the middle of the indigenous rainforest. You had your community there for 200 years, and 2 men in suits come in and say, right, we're taxing you on your bananas. Like, you wouldn't have it. That's the world that we've lived in. So if you can just simplify it like that, it doesn't make sense. So those ones will get you excited, and those ones will give you a bit of a thirst for more. And then I'm mainly on Rumble now, because I have free speech on there.
Good. Well, and thank you so much for giving all those pieces of information. I've written it all down. I'm not just one of those people who just kind of like nods and smiles. I'm like, I'm going to be all over that. And for those listening and watching, there may be parts of what's been said that trigger you in terms of maybe a bias that's kicked in. It may be because of a particular person that's been mentioned, or a topic that doesn't seem to resonate. And if you're feeling that when you're listening to this or watching this, that's a good feeling. And it's worth being inquisitive as to why that feeling is in place. And so observing that feeling as opposed to just going along with it and sleepwalking. You know, we think 60, 70,000 thoughts per day, and 80% is the same as the day before. And so what we tend to be doing is sleepwalking through things on a patterned behavior, because we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. So if you have been feeling that there's something that's triggering in one way, sit with that and think, well, that's interesting. I seem to have I've uncovered a bias here that maybe it's because I've always thought X, and it's a shame to sometimes miss some more information than we could normally feel or hear because of a bias. So that's what I would like to leave people with in closing.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can even, it's the same with a label. The moment you give someone a nickname or a label, then you've lost that conversation. It's like, oh, the French, and straight away you've got your own vision of a French person or your own beliefs. It's not yours. That's a repeated pattern. So it's to almost let go of all it. And like Jonathan said, just feel it.
Yeah, that's right. Sit with it and feel it. Wow. Wow, what a fantastic call. Thank you so much, Harry. Let's just check in a few weeks' time or a month's time or whenever the time is right. I mean, that's probably a year since we last spoke. Let's just by the way, in terms of bioresonance, I forgot to mention there's a great episode on Academy of Advanced Thought called Rewiring Our Minds with Philip Story, and we go deep into that rabbit hole, like literally kind of eventually just sitting opposite each other in silence on the video call. So Rewiring Our Mind is what is worth watching about bioresonance and so forth. But cool, thank you, mate. I will. I'm probably not going to upload this onto YouTube because I can imagine this is going to get blocked. So I'm going to upload it onto Dailymotion. I'll put it on Dailymotion or Vimeo and or Rumble. But either way around, I'll be doing that in the next 24 hours. Then I'll share it liberally across all channels. And Harry, if you can send me links of things, then before I publish, I will then also include the links on the Academy, and so that everyone's got access. And I'm going to love you and leave you, and thank you so much for the work you're doing, man. Keep at it.
Thank you. Good to see you again, mate. And thank you, everyone.
Speak to you soon, dude.
See you, man.
Cheers, mate.